A very good morning to one and all present here. I am Ruchi Jani from Srimati Anachal Municipal Medical College. I would like to welcome you all to the keynote speaker session of Adrenaline Medical Conference 2020. Unfortunately, we couldn't materialize the grand fifth edition that was planned in March due to the unanticipated COVID 19 pandemic, but we just cannot miss the opportunity to organize the fifth installment of our conference. So we bring to you a smaller version of AMCON 2020 virtually. Our first speaker for the day is an alumnus of Srimati NHL Municipal Medical College. I'm pretty sure many of you may know that he is one of the founding members of Adrenaline Medical Conference. He is one of the reasons we are sitting here and attending the keynote speaker session of the fifth installment of our conference. At the age of 23, he became the managing director of KD Hospital, a 300-bed hospital in Ahmedabad. He is the chairman of Indian Medical Association Junior Doctors Network. He has been a TEDx speaker, president of MSAI, head of MSAI UNESCO Bioethics Unit. He was also a part of the IFMSA delegation to the 70th WHO World Health Assembly held in Geneva and was the head of the delegation at the 65th IFMSA August meeting, General Assembly at Puebla, Mexico. And these are just some of his many achievements. So please welcome Dr. Adit Desai, or as we NHLites fondly call him, Adit Bhai.
Thank you, Ruchi. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to come and speak for students at AMCON. It's something that we started with a lot of passion, and it feels really great to see you guys doing so well and bringing the brand up in such a big way. So thank you for having me. It's always an honor. Good morning, everyone. I hope you all are doing well. I'm sure that you guys are preparing for your final exams or your NEET PG exams. But it's great that you're all tuned in today to hear me speak on the topic of the day. Today, I'll start with my introduction. I'm Dr. Adit Desai, and I'm the director of Doc Tutorials EduTech Private Limited and the managing director of KD Hospital. As you all know, I was an alumni of NHL Medical College. So today I'll be talking about the evolution of medical education, past, present, and future. I'll be taking you all through the evolution of medical education post-independence to what it is in the present situation and the future of education. Today we will learn how the medical curriculum was formulated over the years and where it is headed today. So if you'll allow me to share my screen, I have a PowerPoint presentation. Yeah, I hope it's visible, Ruchi.
Yes, it's visible.
All right. So in between, I'll also be showing you guys a couple of videos for better visualization of what the future could hold for medical students. So beginning from 1956, post-independence is when the Indian Medical Council Act, the first Indian Medical Council Act was introduced in the parliament. The curriculum institutionalization began in 1956 for the purpose of modern medicine. Very less medical colleges were there back in 1956 post-independence. The multiplication of colleges was low and under. There were different 5-year plans, as you all may have studied back in school, that there were different 5 year plans that were introduced by the government. And so medical education was a part of those 5-year plan, and the work was very slow and very few medical colleges were there. So the Indian Medical Council Act was introduced, and hence came into picture for the first time medical curriculum in a very structured way. The second landmark milestone came in 1977 with the introduction of rural services in medical education. Now, the reason for this was in 1967, the WHO had recommended certain changes in the orientation of medical education. According to them, medical education had to be linked with various rural healthcare modalities. So hence came into picture the rural services that we have in today's world. So because of this comes into picture social medicine and community medicine, as we call PSM. So that was the second milestone that came in the year 1977. The third milestone was in around 1986, where the Rajiv Gandhi government passed certain bills and laws in the parliament, uh, and made the medical education sector private. It allowed private sector to enter into the medical education business, and hence came into picture all these private colleges that we see today. The reason for this is, to broaden the scope of standards to get in private expertise into the medical education sector. Capital education, and as a result, today out of 530 medical colleges, 50% of them are private colleges. Importance was given to a structured curriculum, and outcome-based analysis was introduced. As a result, the current examination patterns and all, the entire structure was formed after 1986. The fourth milestone came in around 1997, where the government made the MCI recommendations mandatory. So whatever the MCI recommended, the colleges had to follow those structures, had to follow those guidelines and protocols. So this is where the uniformity of policies and protocols came into the picture. And in this way, it uniformed the medical education that was being disbursed across the country. The fifth milestone came in around 2009, where it was the platinum jubilee of the Medical Council of India, and they had introduced the National Faculty Development Program. Now, till 2009, the entire focus was only on the education of the students. But from 2009 onwards, the MCI decided that the faculty who's actually educating the students also need a development program. They need to be oriented uh, in colleges, and they need to be taught how to disburse the education. So this was a welcoming move by MCI in the year 2009. The sixth milestone that came was in 2016, when the NEET national entrance cum eligibility test was introduced for UG, PG and SS. So I think this was one of the major milestones which through which all the entrance exams were unified into one, and which made it very easy for the students to not reduce on their traveling, reduce on their expenses for the entrance examinations. And the last and final milestone that was there, which is just came in recently, was the formation of the National Medical Council, which replaced the MCI. And through the National Medical Council, uh, uh, the first move that they did was to unify the AIMS, PGI, and JIPMER exams into INICET, that is the Institute of National Importance Common Entrance Test. So now medical students are faced with only two exams, which is the NEET and the INICET. And the other thing that is still under ponderance is the next exam, which basically is nothing but NEET exam, but this will also give you an access to your MBBS degree, along with it being a national entrance exam. So which is still under ponderance. It's not yet live. Maybe in the next couple of years, once they structure the entire thing, once they make policies and protocols, they'll roll it out on a big scale. So I got you from the past to the present on how the medical curriculum started, evolved, and how it is today. I'd like The next thing would be to discuss the present situation, the current situation, what problems we as students are facing, what are our issues, and what can be changed. So the current situation in medical examination requires you to be physically present in the classrooms. Factory education is a term that has come up very recently, which terms colleges and institutions as factories producing students with a single frame of mind, with a single set of points, instead of they having a broader scope of mind, instead of them having a broader understanding of the entire topic. The deadly 75 for students, the 75% attendance, which is mandatory, is one of the only reasons students actually attend classes, so that they are eligible to give the examination, and not because they actually want to attend these classes and learn. Students attend colleges more for extracurricular activities and less for educations today. which is not a bad thing, but education should always have more importance and more focus in colleges rather than extracurricular activities. Both of them are equally important, but it's very important that both of them be equally present, in a student's frame of mind. The real educations are not happening in classrooms, but they're happening in libraries, peer groups, hostel rooms, and chai breaks in canteen. That is where actually students are discussing topics. They're learning from each other. They're learning from each other's knowledge and mistakes, etc., which actually should happen inside the classrooms. Outside the classroom is not meant for education. The real education should happen inside classrooms. Uh, I mean, the professors are not the only people to blame here. The system is such that professors are not well equipped or not well trained with the technology that they have to disperse educations, which I think should be another thing that the NMC could look into. Apart from the National Faculty Development Program, they should also do something in the field of training the professors in the field of technology. The curriculum which we are studying today has not been updated in ages. The pattern of dispersing the education or the pattern of the exam has not been changed in ages, and I think it's about time that they change it so that the new students that are coming in, they'll be taught according to what the actual situation in the society is. The focus today is more on academics, is more on marks, it's more on results rather than concept clearing and better understanding of the topic. As doctors, nobody is going to ask you after 5 years how much you scored in your first year exam or how much internals did you get, but it's always going to be about the concept or uh, how clear you are about the field that you're in, and how much do you understand the entire topic. Today's education is only about chalk and duster instead of better visualization of the entire thing. It's only about blackboards and chalks is where uh, the professors teach us. They are not well equipped with technology, as I mentioned earlier, and it's not their fault, but it's something that the public and the private sector together can form a bridge there. There is no focus on clearing doubts and solving queries. It's always about finishing the course in time. All of us have been to all these classes where 500 800 people are crammed into a single hall, and when one professor is teaching, all of us are taking notes. That is not how ideally education should be. It should be more about how to solve every individual student's queries and doubts, so that at the end of the day you are sending out students into the world and all of their concepts are clear. And there's always crowded halls in colleges, in these tuition classes. There are always crowded dissection halls where a student does not know exactly what he's or she is being taught, and the focus is always on taking notes rather than to listen and to learn and to clear your concepts. Online education is something that has come up very very recently in the last 3-4 years. It's something that is very upcoming. This is a topic that I'll be discussing later in this presentation, but for now I think we'll be moving towards what the future of medical education holds for us. The future is actually without borders, and it's in the hands of students and technology, and both of them have to go hand in hand. So the future of medical education holds a lot of possibilities for a medical student, and instead of me discussing these, I'll take you guys point by point through very simple, easy to understand videos that I've found on YouTube. uh, I'll take you guys point by point. The first one being augmented reality, which is for better visualization. By definition, what augmented reality means is real-time use of information in the form of text, graphics, audio, integrated with real-time objects. Now, this is very difficult to understand, but let me take you through a simple video that would help you get more understanding.
Number 6. Virtual and mixed reality for medical education.
Imagine pure... Sorry, 1 second. Yeah. So there's a real-time a human body in front of you, which with the use of technology, you can see any body part, any organ, take it out, see it 360 degrees, read the text on that particular organ. For anatomy, you can just break up parts. Here, as you see, I'm breaking up parts of the skulls and to see individual bone of the skull for better visualization from inside and from outside. Here, there's a virtual cadaver on the table where you can see individual sections of the body without there being a physical body, without there being a need of a physical cadaver in front of you. Every student can have their own cadaver in front of them without their, instead of there being one cadaver in front with 20 people around. Here, while you are
The wrist
reading
is
notes,
composed of 8 carpal bones arranged into 2
you
distinct
can
rows.
visualize
A
the
proximal
bones
row
in front of
and
you,
a
or the
distal
organs
row.
in front of you.
These small bones provide flexibility to the wrist. There are 4 bones in each row.
Imagine this being installed in each and every library of the country. And while you're reading, you have a virtual cadaver, a virtual organ and bones in front of you. The second point will be a virtual reality. Now, a lot of people always confuse between AR and VR and the difference between AR and VR, which I think we'll be clearing in our next video. Well, what virtual reality basically is it's a computer generated simulation in which a person can interact with artificial 3D environment using electronic devices. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those VR glasses that you wear and you install your phones. So that is what virtual reality is, that you use electronic devices to enter into a virtual reality that is not yours. And currently virtual reality is being used predominantly in the gaming sector and not in the education sector, but I think it's the future of education sector. I'll show you a very simple video for that as well.
Number 6, virtual and mixed reality for medical education.
Imagine
Very easy video by
peering
Cleveland
inside the
Clinic.
human body without an incision or a scope.
As you can see, the person
Turning
is
the
wearing a
heart
glass.
without touching it. Using a headset, controllers, and innovative technology, it's possible to navigate human anatomy through virtual and mixed reality. These realities can provide medical training in procedures, techniques, and equipment use, as well as simulate patient interactions in a more immersive and realistic way. As the VR/MR trend grows, pilot programs involving these technologies for the education of medical students are being implemented worldwide. Though not a replacement for hands-on practice, virtual and mixed reality are increasing situational experience. Giving students an opportunity to practice with computer simulation is a low-risk alternative and, in extreme cases, can prevent patient harm. The technology's new applications have many dubbing virtual and mixed reality the new reality.
So, I think virtual reality is something that not just medical students can learn from, but it can also be used in real time by doctors who are performing surgeries to create an entire simulated environment where you input a patient's information, a patient's reports, and CT scans, MRI into the software. You can virtually create the patient's body, and you can dissect the entire body to, have different permutation combinations of. Different modalities of treatment to see which one is actually going to work for the patient. And instead of what happens today is you perform the surgery and then there are complications which you have not foreseen, and that puts the patient's life in risk. So virtual reality and AR can definitely help not just medical students but also practicing doctors in their fields. The third, and I think the third one, which is Anatomage and Spectra, these are two products out there in the market already, which are basically nothing but a virtual cadaver in front of you. You can cut you can take slices, you can see different MRIs and CTs of different parts of the body, and it's your personal cadaver, a personal cadaver for every student. Of course, it's quite expensive right now to buy an anatomage table, but I'll show you what exactly it is for you all to get a more clearer idea.
The Anatomage table is an interactive display system for anatomy education.
It's a 6 feet
It's capable
table,
of providing full body anatomy
a real-time
visualizations
virtual
on a
body,
life-size scale.
where you can see the musculoskeletal system, the nervous system, the circulatory system.
So this is a skeleton of a real patient. You took all the tissue
take a
off.
dissection.
So I cut across here. If I press
You
there,
can
I get
remove
rid of it. And I can turn.
Now you can visualize it from
Skeleton.
inside, from every
And I
side
can
that
see
you
the
want
blood
to see
vessels.
the organ.
Structures can be toggled by tapping the on and off icon next to the desired structure, category, or system.
So here you can see the entire circulatory system of the human body without any bones and organs for better clarity, better visualization of the entire human body.
There are ways you can dissect animals in here. There are all different
Not
kinds
just
of disease
humans,
states
but you can
put
also
in here.
dissect
Teach medical
different
students
animals.
how to evaluate the lungs for cystic fibrosis or pulmonary fibrosis or tumors.
It also simulates an operation table, as if you were in front of the patient or cadaver. The touch interactive controls are natural and intuitive, again strengthening the concept of being present with a full-body life-size patient or cadaver. The table comes loaded with a full-body CT scan enhanced with custom anatomical models. What you see here is the skin model. The scalpel tool can be used to create custom cutting planes, and then it can be rotated to see the volume rendering underneath with the digital models.
To get all the latest news, visit www.beholdthefuture.com.
So imagine having one of these in your college, in the dissection hall. A student can just go whenever the student wants, dissect the virtual cadaver, see whatever organs, whatever bones that they want. And what happens today is once you miss out on a body part, that body part is gone forever. Once you dissect a body part and it's gone, then there's no other option for the student to go back and learn from it. You just have to learn from the bone set that you have. But here you can go whenever you want, how many ever times you want to the department, dissect whatever you want, see any organ, any bone as many times as you want from each and every angle. So I think this is something that is possible in the very, very near future. This is something I think we can see in the next 3 to 4 years in most of the colleges across the country, hopefully. The future of the healthcare, as discussed in the present situation, the issues that we are facing right now is the lack of personalized education. Not every student is able to cope up with the time, and not every student is able to clear all the concepts. So I think personalized education where 1:1 ratio is provided by every college to every student is something that I feel would change the face of medical education entirely. Smart classroom, as discussed earlier, most of our times goes into taking notes, is to draw figures or to write what the professors are dictating. But I feel the professors' focus should be on teaching, and the students' focus should be to learn what the professor is teaching, and automatically get the notes, get the screenshots, or whatever the professor is writing on the screens is something that will majorly help every student to just focus on what is being taught in the classroom rather than what you're supposed to write and learn later. The third thing, I feel a mentor program is something that can really help every student, where a group of students are given a mentor from the college, say a PG resident or the professor itself, so that there's always that communication happening from students and to the faculties, so that there's a There's no gap in between students and faculties. Third would be virtual classrooms, which I think is in the distant future of education as whole. I feel institutions and infrastructures will be a thing of the past. I think virtual classrooms is going to be the future, where there's no physical need of any attendance. So the student does not have to always worry about where he or she is. You can attend your classes from wherever you are, and you can always attend these classes later on. And the entire college syllabus and faculty can be at your fingertips. You can see what lectures you want whenever you want and wherever you are. And I think giving the students that freedom, or that added value, is something that a student always requires. We, as a student myself, we never like to be bounded by a timeline. We would want to do things on our own time. Of course, we have to do those things, but on our own time. And I think that will definitely be the future of medical education. As discussed, online education is something that I told you that we will be discussing later in the presentation. So online education is something that has come up recently in the last 3-4 years. There are a lot of applications and websites, and people use YouTube as a medium to disperse education on different topics for different examinations. So there are certain benefits of online education, and there are certain gaps that are there in online education as of today. The tech is new, of course, and hence expensive. It's anywhere ranges from 40 to 45,000 per student per year, which I think is extremely expensive for medical students. But towards online education, which will make all these other applications today obsolete. The concept of personalized education will be implemented, and every student will be able to talk to the teacher of his or her choice, wherever that professor or the student is. A student from the east can just by a click of a button talk to a faculty in the south, and discuss whatever topics they want to discuss, any MCQ that they have any doubts with, etc. The guidelines and SOPs will need to change to accommodate the increasing curiosity of medical student fraternity. Currently, any online platform that is there is a one-way mode of education, where the faculty is teaching and the student is learning. But we'll have to pave the way for a two-way education, where there's also feedback coming in from the students to the faculties in real time. And I think this will really benefit the students in the future. I think the exams that that are currently focusing only on marks and only on how much you're writing will completely shift to the exams focusing on only concepts. How well do you know the topic, or how clear you are about the particular topic? Going paperless with all our examinations is also something that I see happening in a very distant future. But a lot of countries in the world are moving towards this. India, of course, is not there yet. Practical education of cases where the actual revolution will take place. As we saw in these videos, these the technology is not just for medical students, but it's also for PG residents, where there'll be virtual case presentation, where you do not need an actual patient physically in the hospital to present your case. You'll be able to present your case virtually as well. Students can try different permutations and combination on a virtual patient and see the result without any risk of complications. You can try different modalities of treatment, different drugs, different diagnosis, and etc., without risking without risking any complications to the patient, which exists in today's world. So you cannot experiment with a real patient, but you can definitely experiment with a virtual patient. You can see inside out the human body, as we saw in Anatomage, or virtual and augmented reality. You can see inside, you can see from whatever angle you want to get a better idea of the depth and clarity of the organ and the bones. And I think artificial intelligence is also something in the distant future which will help to assist students and doctors to understand radio diagnosis. But for artificial intelligence to develop, it needs a lot of data, which keeps on changing, and it's different from patient to patient. So that is something that will take time to catch up, but it will definitely be a good assistant to the doctors and the students in the future. I think that brings an end to my short but sweet presentation. that is the evolution of medical education in India in a nutshell. I think there's still a long way to go to achieve the goal of the ideal educational institute, which will require the amalgamation of private and public sector, but most importantly, the acceptance from students. Thank you very much. Thank you for spending your time on a Saturday morning to hear me speak. If you guys have any questions related to the past, present, and future of medical education, I'd be more than happy to answer you all.
What are the cons of this thing? Like in the future, if we are not going to practice it over a real body or anything?
No, so I mean, I by that I don't mean that we completely stop practicing on real bodies. Of course, real patients, real case presentation will always have to be there. But just in case a student is curious that, oh, what if I do so and so thing in this patient, what will happen? Or what if I try this modality of treatment, what will happen? In a real life situation, you cannot do that. We are not allowed to do that. We're bounded by our ethical guidelines. So the virtual case presentations will always be an assistant to the student. It will not be the only thing. It cannot replace the benefits of practicing on a real patient. So it will always be an adjacent thing, a complementary thing to the real patient.
Okay.
And of course, all the technology that I took you guys through, that will never be the sole thing that will be there. It will always be complemented with the real life practice, the real life patients, real life cadavers, because of course the student has to also touch and feel. Apart from just visualizing, the student needs to feel how it feels to dissect a cadaver, or how to suture a real life tissue, etc. So all this technology will always be an assisting partner in the current education system that we have.
Okay, thank you. Anyone would like to ask any question? There's one question. Is there any scope of sensitizing the fraternity out here in India by organizing workshops by these technologies in near future?
I think we as a country, at least in the education sector, have been lacking behind in promoting these technologies out there. We are still very primitive when it comes to dispersing education. So I don't expect it from the system to promote these technologies, but I think as students, we should stand up and demand for these technologies, because we would know and feel the benefits of these technologies. So I think as the student fraternity, we should stand up and ask the government or our colleges to bring these technologies to us, because that's all we can do. We cannot. All these technologies are extremely expensive, so of course we'll need help from the government and the colleges. But definitely by organizing something for the faculty, something for the students and governments, would definitely help them in understanding how it can be beneficial to us. So we will have, as students, we'll have to take the charge of the entire situation.
Okay. Another question is, what do you think about next exam means? After how many years next is going to be conducted?
So next exam is basic nothing but it's NEET exam. It's National Entrance Cum Exit Test is what it stands for, which will be conducted after you give your final year exams. It will be immediately conducted after your final year exams. It has been in the pipeline for the last 3 to 4 years. It has been vehemently opposed by the Indian Medical Association and the medical student fraternity, because it is just an added burden to the medical students to also. So basically, you have to clear the next exam in order to get your MBBS degree as well, which would, make all the other exams that we give, the first year, second year, final year exams, obsolete. So either you take away all those exams from us and give us just one exam, or there's no point in giving us the next exam, because that is just adding another exam on our plate, which we do not need. We already have all our other exams and the NEET exam, which I think works perfectly. But the NMC, that is the National Medical Council, is being headed by bureaucrats and not doctors. So that, I think that is something that as the student fraternity, we should definitely oppose, because we cannot expect IAS, IPS officers to understand what medical education is and how it is going to be taken forward. I think with the current situation, I think in 1 or 2 years it may come, but we'll have to keep on opposing it, definitely.
Okay. Another question is, how would you like to modify the current medical education scenario?
But as discussed in the presentation, I don't think the current classroom education practices is working. I don't think it's been working for the last 10 to 15 years. I think that you need to definitely start promoting online education to students, and of course, as a complement to the classroom education, I think teachers should be, given the technology and the tools to make the students understand the topic better. I think teachers themselves are not very well equipped with the things that they should have, like a lot, and most of it I think is related somewhere around technology and investing in technology. Of course, that is the call of the medical colleges and the government policy makers. So I think investing in technology, equipping the professors with technology is how we can move ahead in the right direction.
Okay. So next question is, how to keep ourselves in real practice amidst online education?
So as I said earlier, online education will never be the primary thing. Online education will always be the complementary thing. The real practice is where your actual focus should be. And so even currently online education, how students are using it definitely in their free time or after their their day is over, is just to keep themselves updated or to clear their concept. So it will not be the only thing that you will be doing, but it will be a complementary thing to the real practice.
Okay. And the one is a bit controversial, but how much hindrance or support do you think the political system creates for the advances in this sector?
So I don't think the political sector has any issues with providing these technologies, because they have nothing to lose. I think it's just the bureaucratic, the entire environment that has been created in the country, that whatever is happening happens at a very slow pace. At least in the education sector, whatever is happening very slow. So as I said, as students, we'll have to stand up and demand what we want, because if you're gonna wait for all these technologies to come in, probably it'll come during your children's time. And as I said, the students will have to stand up, demand for it, or there'll have to be a parallel education system, which will complement the current governmental education system, which we only will have to create.
So next question is, since these technologies will take a lot of time to be in the curriculum, how can we solve the issue of lack of teaching staff in colleges in India? Because even if we have online education, we need sufficient teaching staff.
Again, I think this is where the government's role would come in. I think the teachers in this country, not just medical teachers, but any teachers in this country, are extremely poorly paid. Of course, any person would want at least a sufficient basic amount of money to sustain, or they'll have their own dreams to fulfill. I think they're extremely poorly paid. I think that is where we need to start, because to encourage people to take up a job of education, you will also have to pay them what they what they deserve. So that is where we'll have to start. I think there are lots of professors and students even today who are very interested in educating other students, or educating their peers, but the government will have to incentivize the entire teaching sector in order to attract more people to take that job.
So next question is, your views on how medical education was handled during the pandemic.
I think the medical colleges, to be very honest, I don't think they did a very good job in dispersing education to medical students, because all students had turned to private companies to online apps and websites to educate themselves. I don't think the government or any private or public college did anything to disperse college. I think for them it was more of a vacation. Uh, but that time has passed. I think colleges are going to reopen very soon. This is definitely something that the students in their colleges will have to take it up with the management, that whatever they did wasn't very satisfactory. But because of the presence of online apps and websites, their education wasn't hampered.
So next question is, how can we reach out to all the students amidst online education, because rural areas still face accessibility issues?
I think this is also something where public and private sector will have to come in. There are a lot of multinational companies that are trying to increase the accessibility to rural areas, investing more technology in those areas in terms of having good quality internet and giving good quality equipment. But this is an issue I think we as a country have to solve, not just in medical education, but I think also uh, in urban areas, in the poor communities where they have internet but they don't have the tablets or they don't have the smartphones to see online education. So I think this is a very broad topic with no particular answer, but this is where the entire everyone has to come together to help out people in rural areas and in urban areas with in the poor community.
Okay. Further, we have three questions. Also, audience in the live stream on YouTube can also ask questions. Okay. So, for the next question is, according to you, who has more knowledgeable? Good doctor? The students who completed their MBBS from any foreign country or from India?
I don't think. I mean, I'm nobody to comment on this because if you're comparing apples to apples, it's a very difficult answer. I mean, a doctor from a foreign medical college can be smarter than a doctor from the best college in India. That depends on student to student and every individual student's competency. So I don't think there's any particular answer to this. I mean, anyone can be smarter.
And last question: online PG coaching or offline PG coaching, which is better according to you?
In my time, I mean, I've done both. I also sat in an offline PG class in a big hall with 800 students and barely any space to move in a 14-hour lecture, as opposed to watching a video of my choice, of my faculty's choice, of the topic of my choice as many times as I want, and from wherever I am, on my bed or in the library, anywhere. So I definitely think online PG coaching is the future and is going to benefit students that offline PG coaching will never be able to do. Online PG coaching is where you'll get personalized education, is where you can get personalized education. In offline, it's, at least in the current system, it's not possible. So I would definitely choose online PG coaching.
Okay. So I guess we are done with questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aditya Desai, for being here with us and for this informative session and throwing us light over the future of medical education. And now I would like to request Vedanshi to take over the session. Thank you so much.